Please bring your awareness back to the stage and let's take a look at the next quote from Nietzsche. Nietzsche said, "Invisible threads are the strongest ties." Now, whether you've made this association or not, this business is, always has been, and always will be about connection. The lone originator that has the most relationships and the deepest connections will ultimately be the most successful, especially in a market like this one. This is why great originators, and I know a lot of them, I'm very blessed to have a lot of friends that I coach that are some of the best originators in this country. This is why people like Holly Walther still funds over 20 loans a month. This is why Sam Rosenblatt is still funding 25 loans a month. And Greg Kingsbury and Mike Watson are still having extreme success in this market. Why? Because they have relationships. And they've invested in those relationships, and the connections have been fortified. So this is a business of connection. And what is connection? Well, another way of saying it, maybe you've heard me say this before, and I'd like you to write this down, is the loan officer with the most friends wins. It's a very simple formula. Your job is to make as many friends as possible. Now, in order to make connection with another human being, both parties' guards need to be down. If either party's guard is up, there is no literal ability to create a connection between two people. What brings someone's guard down? Having you do something nice for them, showing that you care about them. Being purposeful in your business and in your life. At the end of the day, it's not as much about what you bring to the relationship. Yes, all the tools are valuable. But what's more important than what you bring to the relationship is who you bring to the relationship. Who are you inside yourself? This is why it's so incredibly important for you to have a subscription to MBS Highway. Not because of what Barry and Dan teach you. Yes, they teach you valuable information. They tell you when to lock your loans, but it's way deeper than that. It's because of how you feel about yourself when you're taking in the information. This is why it's so important for you to have a mastery of your underwriting guidelines. All those originators that I mentioned before know how to put a tough deal together. And guess what? They feel good about themselves as a result. This is why it's so incredibly important for you to understand a wide variety of product, and this is why it is vital for you to have your CMA. For you to be a certified mortgage advisor, because as a certified mortgage advisor, who you bring to the relationship is something very different than when you know deep down inside that you lack education. So, 3 things. Let's talk about connection. Connection is forged in 3 different ways. All 3 of these things must be in place in order for there to be connection. I challenge you to think of any relationship that you've ever had in your life that was a meaningful relationship, and I promise you that all 3 of these things were in place. If one of them is missing, we do not have a relationship. They are as follows. They like you. Number 2, they respect you. And number 3, they trust you. They like you, they respect you, and they trust you. I'm trying to simplify this game that we're playing, folks. This is what it's all about. But here's an interesting thing, and I'd like you to write this down. Outer experiences are a reflection of inner reality. Outer experiences are a reflection of inner reality. What does that mean? That means that what goes on out there is a direct reflection of what's going on in here. This is why I always say it's an inside job. The work is always inward. The most important battle that you will ever win and that is consistently waged is the one that takes place in between the ears, especially over the last 18 to 24 months. I've been on this journey with you. I know what you've been going through. I know how hard it's been. I know the emotional roller coaster that you've experienced. This is why the top originators that I know do only 3 things. And I want you to write these down. Number 1, they connect with people that need to borrow money. Number 2, they connect with people that can refer them to people that need to borrow money. And number 3, they continually reinvest in the growth and upliftment and evolution of themselves as a person and in business. Now, if outer experiences are a reflection of inner reality, then the three following things must be in place for them to like you, respect you, and trust you. I need to like me. I need to respect me. And I need to trust me. And if those three things are in place, you quite literally become magnetic. Now, what did Nietzsche mean when he said invisible threads are the strongest ties? He was talking about energy. Some of you may not understand the concept of energy, so I want to give you an example to help simplify it and make sure that you understand what I'm talking about. I'd like everyone in this room right now to think of someone in their life that is a victim. They are constantly at the effect of the outside world. They complain all the time. They blame consistently. They are righteous. They are caught in the duality of right and wrong, and they talk behind others' backs. What is your experience when you're around that person? Are you drawn to them, or are you repelled by them? What you're experiencing when you're repelled by them is their energy. Those of you in the room that are empaths, you know exactly what I'm talking about. An empath is someone who has their guard down all the time, and they take on the energy of others. Now I want you to think of an opposite person. I want you to think of someone who is open, who is curious, who is consistently looking for the blessings and learnings in even the most adverse situations. They're positive, and they are vibrating an energy that is very high. What is your experience when you're around that person? Are you drawn to them or are you repelled by them? You're drawn to them, aren't you? You can't get enough. They're in a good mood all the time. And why? Because you're picking up on their energy and they're lifting you up. So which loan originator is ultimately going to be most successful of those two? Isn't it quite obvious? The one who vibrates very high. How many of you have read the book by the great psychiatrist David Hawkins, Power versus Force? Anyone? Love it. We have a couple of wise people in the room. It's a terrific book. I've read it a couple of times. Hawkins was a brilliant man. And he studied the subject matter of energy in great depth. Now, I want to make sure that you understand a little formula here that's important. Thoughts that arise in our consciousness create emotions. Emotions are energy in motion. Those emotions cast off a vibrational frequency into the field around you, which is what other people are picking up on. So the thoughts that you think that create the emotions that you feel that subsequently generate the vibrational frequency that you're experiencing and exhibiting have everything to do with whether you're attractive or not. So Hawkins wrote a book, Power versus Force, and he created a calibration scale of energy. He was able to measure the energy of a human being based upon these thoughts and emotions they were experiencing. And he called this duality power versus force. Power was the high vibrational frequencies of energy, and force are the low vibrational frequencies of energy. And Hawkins figured this out, and this is going to directly apply to sales, that when you are in coercion, when you are in control, when you are in manipulation, when you are attached to the outcome of a sales situation, you're vibrating at a very low frequency, and people feel it, and their guard goes up, and they push away. And never has it been more evident when you're selling to a real estate agent. Why? Because they have a good reason not to trust, because they've been burned before. So they're on the lookout for this low vibrational frequency, whether they're cognitively thinking about it or not. Now, conversely, power, the high vibrational frequencies of energy, are when you are curious, when you're courageous, when you're vulnerable, as Dan talked about earlier, when you are unattached to the outcome, when you are there to serve, when you're there to help. Think of a time when someone was truly there just to help you and you could feel it. What happened to your guard? It went way down. And that's when connection can take place. So let's take a quick look at this calibration scale of energy. At the very bottom, the lowest frequency that one can vibrate is shame. It is the nearest to death. Many of you have experienced shame over the course of the last 18 to 24 months when you were experiencing those symptoms. Just above that is guilt, then apathy. Then above that is, I can't read, grief, thank you. And then I could turn around here, couldn't I, and look at it. Grief, sorry about that. I need my reading glasses. Grief, then fear, then above that is desire, and then anger. You may say, wow, anger, why is that higher than all these others? Because within anger there is will. There is will to fight. And above anger is pride. And then we hit the threshold. And when we cross the threshold into the high vibrational frequencies that Hawkins was able to measure, we have courage. We have neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, and peace. This is why I say the battle between the ears is the ultimate battle. The thoughts create those emotions. The emotions create the vibrational frequency in the field. That vibrational frequency makes it possible for you to connect or not to connect. The reason you experience the symptoms on the first slide is because the focus was on you. We only get what we want when we help others get what they want. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate.